Hi, this is Lady Lex UK, and today I'm going to show you some of the builds that I have made in an attempt to try and look less like Project Spark and add a little bit more realism. And I'm just going to show you some of the designs that I've made and how I've made them. So we'll start off with the medieval village. And as you can see, I have not used the Project Spark standard props that are made to make architecture in a medieval style. I've made my own building blocks, and I've used those to make these houses. And I've also used these based on a design made by a YouTuber called Maverick. He makes speed level builds of Unreal Engine, and obviously in Unreal Engine you have a much more realistic looking selection of props to use, and he's used modular pieces in order to build up his villages, and he's shown you how he's done that with a speed build. And I have followed those speed builds and tried to make the same props, and unfortunately every now and then he'll change his mind. So I've worked out on something and then he'll change his mind and move it, and although it's nice and easy to move it in Unreal Engine, it is not as easy to move it in Project Spark. So there's a few little errors cropping in here and there where you can see where bits and pieces haven't quite lined up the way I would like to, but it's not that bad. I was quite pleased with how this looks. I think it's quite moody and interesting. There is hardly anything in here that is a standard prop that hasn't been fiddled about with. I think these barrels, there we go, they haven't been mucked about with. Everything else is made, changed, recoloured in order to look completely different to Project Spark, including the sky. I don't know if anybody noticed when they saw it on the Project Spark Team Club pages, but this is not a standard Project Spark skybox. You notice there you can't see the contrails. Well, you can see one there, but not in the sky. It's pretty blue, and I've made that one myself using transparent shadow effects at their maximum size, and sort of made a dome over the top of my level to get a completely different look with the sky. I've also used lots of lights, lots of light bulbs in order to colour the building, so that we've got this yellowy look here. Well, it's more white over this side and down there because I've used white light bulbs. So light bulbs can make a huge difference to how an object looks, and the scene, as well as the skybox and the sun angle and the sun brightness. And you can change all of these to try and get as close to. Obviously in Unreal Engine you've got more control of the light source, and you can create much moodier scenes and change things much easier than you can in Project Spark. But it's worth experimenting with, especially if you're just trying to create like some wallpaper or something like that using props from Project Spark. You can get some really interesting effects going on that can look pretty real actually in Project Spark if you experiment a bit. So here are all the buildings, and if I go around the back you'll see they're actually not complete. That one's actually got a back view to it, but this one over here, it's like a set. It's like a movie set. It's just a facade. The back hasn't been actually filled in. So you can see all the bits and pieces and everything it takes to actually make these things, grates and things. And also it takes an awful lot of props, so you're likely to max out your prop count pretty quickly if you're making houses in this way. When we go to be making things in Dreams, we'll be making houses and things in this way with modular pieces. I don't know what the thermometer is going to be like in that, but we'll probably come across very similar issues where we've run out of space and we're going to have to reduce things down. This is at 3,220 props, so really near the top, which is 3,550 I believe is the limit, though I've managed to do 3,552. So you might get lucky and be able to add a little bit more than the limit is supposed to be. So there you go, there's my medieval village. Let me just show you something else that might help you if you're deciding to be making something in Project Spark and then try and making a wallpaper or putting it up on the team club. I've noticed a lot of people make similar mistakes when they are putting up clips. One of these is to leave in this line of code, the display meter. If you're putting up a picture of something, you want to use it as wallpaper, etc. You really don't want that there. You wanted to get rid of it, but well, let me put that in. And then the other thing that I see a lot of is the display system usage metrics. We go to the basic metrics here. So we're going to test mode, and as you can see, we've got that red bar at the top there, and we've got the metrics at the bottom, and it's distracting. If you're trying to show off your designs, it's better if you do not have those on show, because and it will look a lot better to other people, because that is like, what is that? What are those things? If you don't need them in your game, which you don't, then just get rid of them, take them away. You don't want them for your screenshots. The other thing that I've noticed people do is they want to take a screenshot of Project Spark. They go into screenshot mode like this, and there you go. And then they go and do a capture on their Xbox. So you end up with this white box, the words move the camera and snap a screenshot, and that white swirly thing in the middle of the picture. That's terrible. You don't want that. So don't do that. What you want to do, go into options, game setting, you want to turn that off. Right, you want to also make sure that your screen safe zone, this is set correctly. If it is not set correctly, then you're going to get a line over on one side or the top or something where something behind it will show through. So make sure you've calibrated your Project Spark view. I've seen some people put up clips where there is they've not aligned their view correctly, and so you've got this extra line down the side. You don't want that. You want to make sure you've calibrated that correctly. So we've done that. We'll go into edit mode. And just stick an ignore line in there, or just take the whole line out depending on whether you want to keep it or not for your game. But for the purposes of taking pictures, just put ignore line in there, and then you've got a lovely clean shot of your world without any distracting screen display stuff. Position where you want to take your shot from, press capture, and then you've got it. If necessary, stick a flying brain in a player with a first person camera so that you can move around your scene easily and take whatever angle that you want for your screenshot. And you'll get some really great looking pictures to post up for everybody to see, and it will look so much better than if you just didn't do those other extra little moves just to improve it. Okay, so let's have a look and see what else we have made. Let's just exit that. So I made quite a few levels based on YouTuber Maverick. Unfortunately, I can't show you his stuff because I sent him a message requesting that I could use his video in my video, but he hasn't got back to me. I don't like putting things into my videos if I haven't got permission, so I won't be able to put a side-by-side comparison of these builds so that you can see that I've based them on his designs. If you're going to do that, by the way, it's not plagiarism when you're learning how to do something, you're experimenting, as long as you own up to the fact that you've borrowed somebody else's design ideas. This is basically, is it possible to make things that you can make in Unreal Engine in Project Spark? And I think it is, with limitations obviously. I think this looks quite splendid. and I don't think it looks particularly Project Sparkish. I think this looks rather nice. This is the library set, designed by Maverick in Unreal Engine, made in Project Spark. And there's some various things in here that I like. Quite like the windows, the steps going up, the balustrade, the way this all looks. I think this is nice and moody, and you've got panel ceiling, which I haven't quite lined up nicely, but they're very big blocks and it's very difficult to see what you're doing. There we go. There was my library set, and I did max out everything on this. This is absolutely at maximum. There's an awful lot of glued objects though, so I could have gone in and unglued everything so I could put some more in and fill up these bookshelves with some more books, because obviously I ran out of space. I couldn't put any more books in. That's something they never gave us. Little book props would have been nice, along with glass. So being able to put in some windows would have been nice too, but you end up with what you end up with. So okay, this is sort of magic library, Harry Potter and the magic library. There we go. Right, so there's that library set. I was quite pleased with that one. So the next one I had a go at was the cemetery. This is based on the Ravenhill Cemetery set, but it doesn't look an awful lot like it. So, and that's the thing. I mean, I sort of diverted from it quite quickly, realising I wasn't going to get anywhere near what it was supposed to look like. So I decided to go my own way with it. And I actually quite like the way it looks. It's I think it's quite atmospheric. It needs perhaps to be a bit darker. But I was trying to go with a stormy skybox that I've made myself. There is a special effect that comes across this edge, which creates a defined line, which I'm not overly happy with, because I don't know where that's coming from. But never mind. So I've created a cemetery here, and a lot of these props are standard props, but the trees have been remade. There's sort of thorn bushes and decrepit trees just made a little bit more bushy. Again, I've used this is a statue made from a champion. This is a champion selector thing. You just deactivate the brain and make it all one colour, and that creates quite a nice statue. I quite like the use of terrain for vines and plants. This particular terrain tile is rather good for creating vines, and I think that looks really great, and it doesn't add to your prop count, which is even better, because all of these trees obviously are going to create quite a lot of prop. I think this is a sort of like sort of slightly Mexican looking chapel, I feel, rather than the more European looking chapel that was in the Unreal Engine version. But I think it looks quite nice for all that. And the problem was I didn't have the shapes that allowed me to make the prop to look like it did in the Maverick video. So it was one time where I actually had difficulty creating something to look correct. But in its own way, I think it was quite successful, and I quite like the moodiness of the stormy skybox and the way the light lights up that church. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's quite nice, though you wouldn't know necessarily that it was a match for the Maverick one in the same way. It's not as successful as a copy. Right, so we'll move on. Another one that I haven't actually shown on the Xbox Club. This is Roman Town. This is a small Roman town. based on a Maverick design. His is much bigger than mine. I ran out of props almost immediately because it uses up an awful lot of dungeon props. Because to get the brick small enough, you have to use quite a lot of the walls at a small size, which means quite a lot of wall pieces, and you end up making these rather large houses and using up all your props really quickly. Also, the roof takes up an awful lot of props in order to get that nice tile look. That's an awful lot of dome pieces, I think they are, on the top there. That makes those. I've got some statues. Again, I've used the champions, and I've also had a go at the player statue, trying to make him look like Atlas or something, like a Roman in a toga. It's sort of effective, but it's sort of not realistic. And when you're going for realism, it's a bit of a pain. I could have used Connect and get somebody to pose and design it. And I recommend anybody trying to go for realism and wanting statues, that is the way to go, is to pose your characters using Connect and set your pace to 0 at a particular point. You notice I haven't changed the skybox for this one. So this one is a little bit more like what you would see in Project Spark, but even then I still think it looks different to the norm. It's there again though, an awful lot of props, and I ran out of prop space and couldn't add any more to this world. I quite like the way it looks, and I specifically like the walkways. I think they're quite nice. A nice addition. It makes it look a little bit different. So there's my Roman town. Right. Right. What else did I make? I made quite a few. I got quite carried away with the doing these Unreal Engine copies, and it is a shame that I can't show you Maverick's work alongside mine. But do check him out. Do check out the actual levels that I have tried to recreate here, because they are fantastic. Even if you just zip through the speed build bit and just look at the bit at the end when he shows you the completed item, because they are fantastic, very artistic, and also you can see how I've changed them to fit in with what I can do with Project Spark. So I've gone with a stained glass window here. That uses transparent shadow, various different colours behind the window with various bits of metal decorative work. I think that's quite effective, plus a special effect, the light coming through, and some coloured light bulbs are on the floor to give you the effect that the stained glass window light is affecting the colour of the floor. This is a very big set. There's an awful lot of pieces going into this. I can't get proper arches. There is no way to get that lovely rounded arch. You end up with this flattened arch. It's difficult to get a rounded arch in a small amount of pieces. You can make rounded arches. I used boulders before to do not boulders, blocks. The push blocks to make archways that are more rounded, but in order to keep the prop count down, I wanted to use the arches in the dungeon pack, and wow, you don't get that lovely curve, so you end up with quite a square look, but I think it looks quite nice. Getting a vaulted ceiling was damn near impossible. That was the best I could do. I like it, but I wish it was better. It's one of those things. It's my throne, and I've got obviously lots of banners and things, and we've got the chandeliers, which look splendid up there. Though I didn't want to go in and dismantle those in order to make them look like they were lit, so I've left them as they are. because in order to get things to look lit, you have to make them holograms, and then you've got to make, and it's difficult because you don't want the whole of that to be a hologram, you just want the blue parts, and it's literally a nightmare of fiddling about. But I think there is definitely a sense of a large cathedral type building, and this is floor, so don't forget that you can use terrain. You don't have to use props for floor, and so if it's raised up and there's you've got steps and things, you can still put terrain in. You don't have to use the dungeon floor pieces and things like that. You can still use terrain. Keep your prop count down as much as possible. So there you go, there's my throne room. Just a few more to go. I was very busy. I got very carried away with the whole idea of this because it was so exciting to be making things in Project Spark that that looked not like Project Spark, to be honest with you. Here was my attempt at Wasteland. This isn't really based on anything very much. I wanted to create something that looked a bit like Fallout. So we've got lots of noxious bog pieces, and I do apologise for people who don't have those props, but I saved the level so I can use them, so I'm going to. So we've got some lovely bog vines, make some great dead looking trees. Again, I've made my own skybox look to this with some coloured things, but I've used coloured light bulbs, and that's made a big difference to how this looks, because you've got that green decaying look around here because I've put lots of green light bulbs. And if I come around the back where I've put blue light bulbs, you can see the difference in the way the thing looks. There we go, we've got blue light bulbs around here, and we've got that misty morning view with the blue coming through. Well, I think that looks splendid. I was trying to make decent looking wallpaper that looked like a Wasteland setting, and I wanted it to look like somebody had cobbled together a building out of various different bits, and I wanted something that looked like corrugated iron, and I don't think that's too bad. That was the closest I could get, and I used that for the roof. On the top there, corrugated iron and wood stuff. I think that's okay. And I'm desperately trying to get this look like a rusty old container with the fire in, and it's very difficult to do because the primitives, you can't add texture to them, and even while trying to add props as texture, it doesn't really work. So I'll be looking forward to adding paint effects, I think, to things in Dreams in order to create rust effects and what have you, which will be more successful than we can do in Project Spark. But I think that's too bad. It's the tinting, the colouring, the use of light bulbs to colour the scene, which was a revelation for me, because it made a huge difference to how this looked, as opposed to the standard look of Project Spark, which is a little bit more bright, a little bit more colourful, and a bit more cartoony. You don't end up with that nice painterly effect. Like I say, I wanted to look like Fallout and not like Project Spark. I think here's our last one. This is the railway set. I haven't done a skybox for this one. I've just picked one of those the stormy sky look, which is very dramatic and over dramatic. It's a little bit overwrought, really. But there we go. Here is my abandoned railway, and I've used a load of trees that Rapture made that I saved, and I have actually coloured these trees in code because his trees are yellow, which I'll show you when I'm going to edit mode. I've used code to colour the trees, and and I think it looks splendid. There we go, we got some dead things over the road. I've used lots and lots of different terrains in little bits to make it more interesting. Put the overgrown plants on there. Use as many different sizes of the different props. So as you can see here, I've got the small gravel as opposed to the larger wood, larger stone pieces. So you can mix and match it and change the sizes and what have you, and you get a much better look by mixing up all of your terrains rather than just put one down and leave it. You get a more realistic look to it. I quite like the way this cove works, and I never really noticed it before. The water in Project Spark is pretty good. It's not bad at all, the water in Project Spark, and this little cove here I was really quite pleased with. I think that looks rather good. Think about your shapes when you're making things. Think about there we go, it's ended. I think you can see, get to the end here, that I've used what I've used. I've used the grate, the metal grate, and the castle floor to make my railway track. And I made pieces and then just glued them all together and maybe my train track, and I'm quite pleased with it. I think that looks rather good. It's a very dramatic sky though. There you go. Let me just show you in edit mode that I'm not lying, that the trees are yellow. There they go. The trees are yellow. Which isn't a bad look in itself actually, but I wanted them green, so I wanted everything to be a bit green. So I just put a little bit of code in. I think I stuck it in the first tree. Yeah, so for each of the windy bushes I've changed the primary colour to this sort of sandy green colour, and then the secondary colour, which was the branches part of it, make that brown. And I think that works really well. It looks really nice. So if you dump something in and then you realise you don't like the colour of it, instead of going in and changing all of the colours, you can change it in code. As long as you're only using that prop for that particular item, it should be no problem. So there we go. That was my railway, and there's my abandoned train that I've tried to do on its side. At the side of the road, side of the railway track. There you go. Right, thank you for watching then. There was my realistic and non-Project Spark experiments. I'd love to see you have a go at doing this type of thing. Trying to make Project Spark look completely different is actually a really good challenge. So away you go, folks. I'd love to see what you can do to make Project Spark look like something else, and probably add a little bit more realism to your game designs. Right, thanks for watching and keep sparking.